In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maplewood, life was serene and predictable. Families lived in charming cookie-cutter houses with neatly trimmed lawns, and everyone knew each other by name. Among the residents was Vanessa, a stunning woman in her early 30s who had moved in a few months ago. Vanessa quickly became the talk of the neighborhood, not just because of her striking beauty, but also due to her magnetic personality. Vanessa had an aura of confidence that turned heads wherever she went. With her fiery red hair cascading down her back and her piercing green eyes, she exuded a charisma that was hard to ignore. She lived alone in a stylishly decorated home, often seen tending to her garden or jogging around the block in form-fitting workout gear. Her presence was hard to miss, and she soon became a frequent topic of conversation among the neighbors. Across the street lived Mark, a 35-year-old marketing executive with a comfortable life. He was married to Emily, a kind and loving woman, but their relationship had lost its spark over the years. They had settled into a routine that, while comfortable, lacked excitement and passion. Mark had always been a devoted husband, but recently he found himself feeling a void he couldn't quite explain. One sunny afternoon, as Mark was mowing his lawn, Vanessa approached him with a smile that could light up a room. She asked for his help with a minor repair inside her house, mentioning how she didn't have anyone else to turn to. Mark, always the helpful neighbor, agreed without hesitation. Little did he know, this innocent request for help would set off a chain of events that would turn his world upside down. Vanessa's requests for assistance became more frequent. At first, it was small things, fixing a leaky faucet, assembling furniture, or changing light bulbs. But with each visit, the atmosphere between them grew more charged. Vanessa was always warm and appreciative, offering Mark drinks and engaging in flirtatious banter that made his heart race. She would brush against him casually, her touch lingering just a little longer than necessary. Mark couldn't help but be drawn to Vanessa's allure. The confidence, combined with her natural charm, made her irresistible. He found himself looking forward to her calls for help, the moments they spent together becoming the highlight of his day. Vanessa's house, with its warm lighting and inviting ambiance, felt like a haven of excitement compared to the monotony of his own home. But as Mark's attraction to Vanessa grew, so did his confusion. He was a married man, committed to Emily, yet he couldn't deny the magnetic pull he felt towards Vanessa. He began to wonder about her true intentions. Was she merely being friendly, or was there something more behind her flirtatious demeanor? In the coming chapters, we'll delve deeper into the evolving relationship between Mark and Vanessa. We'll explore the rising tension, the stolen glances, and the charged moments that blur the lines between right and wrong. As Mark navigates his feelings of guilt and desire, we'll witness the unfolding of a passionate and complex affair that challenges his very sense of self. Stay tuned as we unravel the secrets of Maplewood and discover how one neighbor's allure can change the course of another's life forever. The sun was just beginning to set, casting a golden hue across the quiet streets of Maplewood. Mark was in his garage, rummaging through his toolbox, when he heard a soft, melodic voice calling out to him. "Hey Mark, do you have a moment?" He turned to see Vanessa standing at the end of his driveway, her red hair catching the evening light, and her green eyes sparkling with a mixture of mischief and warmth. She wore a casual summer dress that accentuated her figure, making it hard for Mark to look away. "Sure, Vanessa. What do you need?" Mark replied, trying to keep his tone casual. Vanessa approached him, her steps light and graceful. "I've been having some trouble with the faucet in my kitchen. It's been leaking all day, and I have no idea how to fix it. Could you take a look at it for me?" Mark nodded, grabbing a few tools from his workbench. "No problem. Let's see what we can do." As they walked to Vanessa's house, Mark couldn't help but notice how close she was walking next to him. Her arm brushed against his occasionally, sending an unexpected thrill through him. They reached her front door, and Vanessa led him inside. Her house was immaculate, tastefully decorated with warm colors and elegant furniture. She guided him to the kitchen, where the sound of dripping water echoed through the space. "Here it is," Vanessa said, pointing to the offending faucet. "It just started this morning, and it's driving me crazy." Mark got to work, examining the faucet and making quick adjustments. As he worked, he couldn't help but feel Vanessa's eyes on him, watching his every move. The air between them seemed to hum with a strange electric tension. "There, that should do it," Mark said after a few minutes, straightening up and wiping his hands on a rag. Vanessa beamed at him, her smile lighting up the room. "Thank you so much, Mark. You're a lifesaver. Can I get you a drink or something as a thank you?" Mark hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Sure, a drink sounds nice." They moved to the living room, where Vanessa poured them each a glass of lemonade. They sat down on the couch, and Mark tried to ignore the way Vanessa's leg pressed against his. They chatted about mundane things at first, but soon the conversation took a more personal turn. "You know," Vanessa said, her voice dropping to a more intimate tone, "It's been really nice having you around. You're always so helpful and kind. I don't know what I'd do without you." Mark felt a blush creeping up his neck. "It's no problem at all, Vanessa. I'm always happy to help." Vanessa leaned in a little closer, her eyes locking onto his. "I mean it, Mark. You've been a real blessing. Sometimes I feel like you're the only one who really understands me." The intensity of her gaze made Mark's heart race. He could feel the heat radiating off her body, and he struggled to keep his thoughts in check. "Vanessa, Before he could finish his sentence, Vanessa placed a hand on his arm, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through him. "Shh, let's not think about that right now. Let's just enjoy the moment." Mark swallowed hard, his resolve weakening. The tension between them was palpable, and he couldn't bring himself to push her away. As they continued to talk, Mark realized that Vanessa's charm and allure were impossible to resist. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa found more reasons to call on Mark for help. There was always something that needed fixing. A squeaky door, a broken light fixture, a malfunctioning dishwasher. Each time, Mark couldn't say no, and each time he found himself spending more time in Vanessa's home. One Saturday afternoon, Vanessa called again. This time, it was the air conditioning unit that had stopped working. Summer heat was unbearable. Vanessa was desperate for relief. "Mark, I don't know what I'd do without you," she said, fanning herself with a magazine as Mark tinkered with the unit. "Like you're my knight in shining armor." Mark chuckled, trying to focus on the task at hand. "Just doing what I can to help, Vanessa." Vanessa smiled, her eyes twinkling with appreciation. "You're too modest. Not everyone would drop everything to help a neighbor in need." As Mark worked, Vanessa stood close by, occasionally brushing against him as she moved around the room. The proximity was intoxicating, and Mark found it harder and harder to concentrate. "There, that should do it," Mark said finally, wiping the sweat from his brow. "You should feel the cool air kicking in any minute now." Vanessa clapped her hands in delight. "Thank you so much, Mark. You're amazing." She moved closer, wrapping her arms around him in a grateful hug. Mark stiffened, unsure of how to react. Vanessa's body pressed against his, and he could feel her warmth through their clothes. "You're welcome," he said awkwardly, pulling away gently. "I'm glad I could help." Vanessa's eyes sparkled with mischief as she looked up at him. "You're always there when I need you, Mark. I really appreciate it." As Mark left Vanessa's house that day, it didn't shake the feeling that there was something more to her frequent requests for help. The way she looked at him, the way she touched him, it all felt charged with an unspoken tension. Back at home, Mark found himself thinking about Vanessa more and more. He replayed their conversations in his mind, analyzing every glance and touch. Was he imagining things, or was there something more between them? Mark knew he needed to be careful. He was married, and he loved his wife, but the allure of Vanessa was becoming impossible to ignore. The lines between neighborly help and something more were starting to blur, and Mark found himself drawn deeper into Vanessa's web with each passing day. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. Vanessa had plans of her own, and Mark was about to find himself caught in a whirlwind of passion and desire that would change his life forever. As the days turned into weeks, the dynamic between Mark and Vanessa became increasingly complex. What had started as innocent, neighborly assistance now seemed to carry a weight that was hard to ignore. Every glance, every touch, and every conversation seemed to carry an undercurrent of something more profound and forbidden. One evening, Mark was in his backyard, tending to his garden, when he heard Vanessa's voice calling out to him again. This time, her tone was different, softer, almost vulnerable. "Mark, can you come over for a moment? I need your help with something," he called from her porch. Mark wiped his hands on his jeans and walked over to the fence that separated their yard. Vanessa stood there, looking as beautiful as ever, her hair cascading over her shoulders in soft waves. "What do you need, Vanessa?" Mark asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Vanessa hesitated for a moment before responding. "It's my bookshelf. One of the shelves came loose, and I'm afraid it's going to fall. Could you take a look at it for me?" Mark nodded, climbing over the fence to join her. As they walked into her house, he couldn't help but notice how close she stayed to him, her arm occasionally brushing against it. The tension between them was palpable, and Mark found himself struggling to keep his thoughts in check. Inside, Vanessa led him to the living room where the bookshelf stood, its top shelf leaning precariously. Mark examined it, trying to focus on the task at hand, but he could feel Vanessa's eyes on him, watching his every move. "This should be an easy fix," Mark said, reaching for his tools. "I just need to secure it back to the wall." Vanessa stood close, her breath warm on his neck as she watched him work. "Thank you, Mark. I don't know what I'd do without you." Mark felt a shiver run down his spine at her words. "It's no problem, Vanessa. I'm happy to help." As he worked, Vanessa moved closer, her body pressing lightly against his. Mark could feel his heart pounding in his chest, proximity making it hard to concentrate. He finished securing the shelf and turned to face her, finding her standing closer than he expected. "There, it's done," he said, his voice a little shaky. "You should be good now." Vanessa smiled, her eyes locking onto his. "You're amazing, Mark. Thank you so much." Mark took a step back, trying to put some distance between them. "I'm glad I could help. If you need anything else, just let me know." Vanessa's smile turned into a smirk as she reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "You're always so helpful, Mark. Really appreciate it." Mark felt a surge of conflicting emotion. On one hand, he was flattered by Vanessa's attention. On the other, he was deeply aware of the line they were dangerously close to crossing. Over the next few days, Vanessa's requests for help became more frequent. There was always something. A broken light bulb, stuck window, piece of furniture that needed moving. Each time, Mark found himself drawn deeper into her orbit, unable to resist her allure. One afternoon, Vanessa called again. This time, it was her car. She claimed it was making a strange noise and she needed Mark to take a look at it. Mark hesitated, but eventually he agreed. As he worked under the hood of her car, Vanessa stood close by, her presence almost intoxicating. She chatted casually, but there was an unmistakable flirtation in her tone. "Mark, I don't know what I'd do without you," she said, leaning against the car and watching him intently. Mark looked up at her, wiping his hands on a rag. "You'd probably find someone else to help you, Vanessa. I'm sure there are plenty of people who'd be willing." Vanessa shook her head, a playful smile on her lips. "No one's quite like you, Mark. You're special." Mark felt his heart skip a beat at her word. He knew he should step back, create some distance, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. The way she looked at him, the way she spoke, it all made him feel wanted in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. That evening, after finishing up with Vanessa's car, Mark found himself thinking about her more than ever. He replayed their interactions in his mind, analyzing every glance, every touch. He knew he was treading dangerous waters, but the allure of Vanessa was becoming impossible to resist. The turning point came one Saturday afternoon. Vanessa called Mark over to help her with her backyard grill. It was an unusually hot day, and the sun beat down relentlessly as Mark worked on the grill. Vanessa brought out a pitcher of lemonade, offering him a glass. "Take a break, Mark. You're working too hard," she said, handing him the glass. Mark took it gratefully, drinking deeply. Cold liquid was refreshing, but it did little to cool the heat he felt from Vanessa's presence. She sat next to him on the patio, their knees almost touching. "You're always there for me," Vanessa said softly, her eyes meeting his. "I don't know how to thank you." Mark swallowed hard, the intensity of her gaze making it hard to think straight. "It's nothing, Vanessa. I'm just happy to help." Vanessa leaned in closer, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "It's not nothing, Mark. You're always here, always ready to help." means a lot to me." Mark felt his resolve weakening. The way Vanessa looked at him, the way she touched him. It's all too much. He could feel the tension between them growing, the unspoken desire hanging heavy in the air. "Vanessa, Mark started, but he was cut off as Vanessa leaned in, her lips brushing against his in a soft, tentative kiss. Mark's heart pounded in his chest as he pulled back, his mind racing. He knew he should stop, should walk away, but the look in Vanessa's eyes held him captive. "Mark, please," Vanessa whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of desire and uncertainty. "I've wanted this for so long." Mark's resolve crumbled as he leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both passionate and desperate. The world seemed to fall away as they lost themselves in each other, the intensity of their connection consuming them both. As they pulled back, breathless and flushed, Mark knew that there was no turning back. The line had been crossed, and their lives would never be the same. Vanessa's allure had drawn him in completely, and he was powerless to resist. The days that followed were a whirlwind of stolen moments and secret glances. Vanessa continued to find reasons to call Mark over, and each time, their encounters grew more intense, the unspoken desire between them becoming impossible to ignore. Mark knew he was playing with fire, but he couldn't bring himself to care. The way Vanessa made him feel was intoxicating, and he was willing to risk everything for the chance to be close to her. As they navigated this dangerous new territory, Mark found himself caught in a web of passion and desire, drawn deeper into Vanessa's world with each passing day. Little did he know their story was only just beginning, and the path ahead would be filled with both ecstasy and heartache. As the days turned into weeks, the chemistry between Mark and Vanessa became impossible to ignore. Every touch, every glance, and every whispered word carried an unspoken promise of something deeper. The boundaries they had once respected were now blurred, and the tension between them reached a boiling point. It was a sweltering summer evening when the inevitable happened. Mark was in his backyard sipping a cold beer, trying to distract himself from the thoughts of Vanessa that consumed him. He heard her call his name from her porch, and his heart skipped a beat. "Mark, can you come over? I need your help with something." Vanessa's voice was soft, almost a plea. Mark set down his beer and walked over, the air heavy with the promise of what was to come. Vanessa stood at her door, looking more beautiful than ever, in a sundress that hugged her curves in all the right places. Her eyes held a mix of vulnerability and desire, and Mark knew that tonight would be different. "Hey Vanessa, what's up?" Mark asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Vanessa bit her lip, a gesture that sent a jolt of electricity through Mark. "It's my air conditioner. It's not working and it's so hot in here. Can you take a look at it?" Mark nodded, stepping inside her house. The air was stifling, and the heat only intensified the tension between them. Vanessa led him to the unit, but it was clear that neither of them was truly focused on fixing it. As Mark bent down to inspect the air conditioner, Vanessa stood close behind him, her presence a tangible force. He could feel her breath on his neck, sending shivers down his spine. When he turned to speak, he found himself inches away from her. Their eyes locked in a silent conversation. "Vanessa, I think it's just a loose wire. I can fix it, but..." Mark's words trailed off as Vanessa placed a hand on his chest, her touch igniting a fire within him. "Mark, forget about the air conditioner," he whispered, her voice trembling with anticipation. "I need you." Before Mark could respond, Vanessa leaned in, capturing his lips in a kiss that was both urgent and tender. All the pent-up desire between them exploded in that moment, and Mark's hands found their way to her waist, pulling her closer. They stumbled towards the living room, their kisses growing more passionate and desperate. Vanessa's hands roamed over Mark's chest, tracing the contours of his muscles, while Mark's fingers tangled in her hair, deepening their connection. As they reached the couch, Vanessa pulled away slightly, her eyes filled with a mix of desire and uncertainty. "Mark, are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mark's response was a hungry kiss that left no room for doubt. "I've never been more sure of anything," he murmured against her lips. With that, they gave in to the intensity of their feeling. Mark's hands explored Vanessa's body, reveling in the softness of her skin and the heat of her touch. Vanessa responded with equal fervor, her fingers tracing the lines of his back, pulling him closer with every breath. The world outside faded away as they lost themselves in each other. The living room filled with the sounds of their shared pleasure, a symphony of sighs and whispers that spoke of longing and fulfillment. Mark marveled at the way Vanessa moved against him, her body a perfect match for his, their connection undeniable. As they tumbled onto the couch, Mark's hands roamed over Vanessa's curves, his touch eliciting gasps of pleasure from her. Kissed a trail down her neck, savoring the taste of her skin, while Vanessa's fingers tangled in his hair, urging him on. Their lovemaking was both fierce and tender, a dance of passion that left them breathless and spent. Mark's mind was a whirlwind of sensation. The feel of Vanessa's body against his, the sound of her moans in his ear, taste of her lips on his. Every moment was a testament to the desire they had held back for so long. When they finally lay entwined on the couch, their bodies slick with sweat, Mark felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. He looked into Vanessa's eyes, seeing the same mixture of satisfaction and uncertainty mirrored there. "Mark, what does this mean?" Vanessa asked softly, fingers tracing patterns on his chest. Mark sighed, pulling her closer. "I don't know, Vanessa. All I know is that I don't want this to end." Vanessa smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Neither do I, but we need to be careful. This could change everything." Mark nodded, understanding the gravity of their situation. But as he held Vanessa in his arms, couldn't help but feel that whatever lay ahead, it would be worth it. Connection they shared was too powerful to ignore, and for the first time in a long time, Mark felt truly alive. As the night wore on, they talked and laughed, sharing stories and dreams. The physical connection between them had opened the door to something deeper, something that neither of them had expected, both had desperately needed. In the days that followed, Mark and Vanessa continued to navigate their complicated relationship. They stole moments whenever they could, finding solace in each other's arms amidst the chaos of their everyday lives. Each encounter was a reminder of the bond they shared, a bond that grew stronger with every touch, every kiss, and every whispered word. And though they knew their journey was fraught with challenges, neither Mark nor Vanessa could deny the truth. They were drawn to each other in a way that defied reason. And no matter what the future held, they were determined to face it together. The heat between Mark and Vanessa had become a regular part of their lives, a secret indulgence that made the mundane seem extraordinary. Their encounters were passionate and fulfilling, each one deepening the bond they shared. But as with all secrets, theirs was bound to be tested. One late afternoon, as Mark and Vanessa lay entwined in each other's arms, the doorbell rang, shattering their moment of intimacy. They froze, their eyes locking with a mix of fear and curiosity. Mark quickly disentangled himself and began to dress, while Vanessa threw on a robe. "Who could that be?" Mark whispered, heart pounding. Vanessa shrugged, her face pale. "I don't know. Stay here. I'll get it." As Vanessa approached the door, she tried to calm her racing heart. She peeked through the peephole and felt a cold dread wash over her. Standing on her doorstep was Emily, Mark's wife, looking worried and out of breath. Vanessa took a deep breath and opened the door, forcing a smile. "Hi, Emily. What brings you here?" Emily's eyes darted around, searching for something. "Hi, Vanessa. Sorry to bother you, but have you seen Mark today? He's not at home, and I know he often helps you out around the house." Vanessa's heart skipped a beat. No, I haven't seen him today. Is everything okay?" Emily sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I'm just a little worried. He's usually home by now. I thought maybe he was here fixing something." Vanessa's mind raced, trying to maintain her composure. "I'm sure he'll be back soon. He might be running an errand or something." Emily nodded, though her worry was evident. "I hope so. If you see him, could you tell him to call me?" "Of course," Vanessa replied, managing another smile. "I'll let him know." As Emily turned to leave, Vanessa watched her go, feeling a pang of guilt and fear. She closed the door and leaned against it, trying to steady her breathing. Mark stepped out from the shadows, his expression tense. What did she want? Vanessa turned to him, her face ashen. "She's looking for you. She thinks you're missing." Mark ran a hand through his hair, frustration and anxiety mingling in his eyes. "This is getting too risky, Vanessa. We need to be more careful." Vanessa nodded, the weight of their secret pressing down on her. I know, but I don't want to stop. I need this, I need you. Mark stepped closer, taking her hands in his. I need you too, Vanessa. But we have to be smart about that. That evening, Mark returned home, trying to act as normal as possible. Emily greeted him with relief, though her eyes held a hint of suspicion. Where were you? She asked, her tone casual but probing. Mark forced a smile. Sorry, I lost track of time. I was running some errands and my phone died. Emily studied him for a moment before nodding. All right, just let me know next time, okay? I was worried. Mark kissed her on the cheek, feeling a pang of guilt. I will. I'm sorry. The next few days were tense. Mark and Vanessa continued their secret meetings, but the fear of being caught loomed over them. Each encounter was tinged with a sense of urgency, as if they were racing against time. One afternoon, Vanessa called Mark over under the pretense of needing help with her garden. As he worked, they stole kisses and touches, their desire for each other undiminished despite the risks. Mark, we can't keep going like this, Vanessa whispered as they lay hidden behind the tall hedges. Can't stand the thought of losing you. Mark sighed, pulling her close. I don't want to lose you either. But Emily, I can't just leave her. It's complicated. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I know, but what if she finds out? What if this all comes crashing down? Mark kissed her gently, trying to reassure her. We'll figure it out, I promise. Just hold on a little longer. As they lay there, lost in each other's embrace, they didn't notice Emily watching from a distance, her expression a mix of shock and betrayal. She had followed Mark, her suspicions getting the better of her. Seeing them together confirmed her worst fears. That evening, Emily confronted Mark, her eyes blazing with anger and hurt. You've been lying to me, Mark. I saw you with Vanessa. Mark's heart sank. He had feared this moment. Seeing the pain in Emily's eyes made it all the more real. Emily, Don't lie to me, she interrupted, her voice trembling. How long has this been going on? Mark looked down, unable to meet her gaze. Few months. Emily's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. Why, Mark? Why would you do this to us? Mark took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. I didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. Vanessa and we have a connection. Emily wiped her tears away, her expression hardening. I can't believe you would throw everything away for her. Mark reached out to her, his heart aching. Emily, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Emily pulled away, shaking her head. I need time to think. I don't know what to do right now. As Emily walked away, Mark felt a crushing sense of loss. He had jeopardized his marriage and hurt the woman he had once loved more than anything. And now he stood at a crossroads, uncertain of what the future held. Back at Vanessa's house, the atmosphere was equally tense. Vanessa sensed that something was wrong and feared the worst. When Mark arrived, his expression confirmed her fears. Emily knows, he said quietly. His shoulders slumped. Vanessa's heart sank. What are we gonna do? Mark shook his head, feeling the weight of their actions. I don't know, Vanessa, but we have to face the consequence. In the days that followed, Mark and Emily had long, painful conversations about their relationship. Emily's anger and betrayal were palpable. So was her love for him. Despite everything, she wasn't ready to give up on their marriage. As for Vanessa, she found herself grappling with her own emotions. She loved Mark deeply, but seeing the damage their affair had caused made her question everything. She didn't want to be the reason his marriage fell apart. In the end, Mark made a difficult decision. He chose to try and repair his marriage, knowing that it would take time and effort to rebuild the trust he had broken. Vanessa respected his choice, though it broke her heart to let him go. For Mark, the road ahead was uncertain. He had to navigate the complexities of his feelings for both women, while also trying to mend his relationship with Emily. And though the journey was fraught with challenges, he knew that he had to face them head-on. As the days turned into weeks, Mark and Emily worked through their issues, slowly finding a way back to each other. Their love was tested, but it was also strengthened by the trials they had endured. And though the future was uncertain, they faced it together, determined to build a new foundation of trust and understanding. And as for Vanessa, she moved on with her life, carrying the memories of her time with Mark in her heart. She knew that their connection was special, But she also understood the importance of letting go. She focused on her own journey, finding solace in the knowledge that she had experienced a love that was both intense and transformative. In the end, their story was one of passion, betrayal, and ultimately forgiveness. It was a testament to the complexities of love and the strength of the human heart. And though their paths diverged, the bonds they had formed would forever remain a part of them, shaping their futures in ways they could never have imagined.